Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto, Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today, as usual, in the house this afternoon. We start with Carl Cox from Riverdale, Georgia. How you doing, Carl? We also have Paul Fleming from Atlanta, Georgia. We also have Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. I decided to give Georgia a shout out for having 3 people right away in starting of the show in, where again? Georgia. 2 in Atlanta. Let's say 1 in Atlanta, 1 in Riverdale, and the other one in, where's the other one? Paul Fleming in Atlanta as well. We also have Lizard Queen, Lizard from Houston. How you doing, my beautiful Lizard? And Lee Grant from Montgomery County is in the house as well. We have May Wood from Long Beach, California, and Melanie Keelan, the furthest one away. Kudos to Melanie from Barcelona, Spain. Love to have you here, girl. Also, though, I think we missed you on the last Ask Egberto Anything, but, you know, you are family. Marxist for Biden is here, as well as Eric Hayes. And I think, let's see, Marxist for Biden says, I think they should lock up Trump for 5 years now. I think they should lock him up forever, but who am I to say, you know? Eric Hayes says, doing the right thing. Howard yanks Diddy's honorary degree, cancels his scholarship program, returns his donation. Wow, I didn't hear that. What did I know Diddy did something recently. I can't remember. I saw it in the news, but I can't remember what it is. But that would be, if Howard is doing that, that is where my daughter graduated from, Howard University in Washington, D.C. So they yanked his honorary degree. I got to read that up during the break. Anyway, we are going to have some fun today. Let's see. Eric Hayes says it was totally inappropriate and wrong for President Biden to apologize to Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky during last week's D-Day commencement activities, former Representative Peter King said. Of course he would say that. He would say that because Republicans completely turn around from what they believe in. I'm not going to talk about believing in the Ukraine war or not, but it's amazing how the stance that they took. All right, let's go ahead and get to the top here. Let's see. Michael Rudnin says, I didn't mention Michael Rudnin. Michael Rudnin from Brooklyn, New York is in the house. How you doing, my brother, Michael? Michael says, Mondays having a bit of a busy day, watching from Twitch for as long as I'm able. Well, we're going to try to keep your attention to make you as able as possible, brother Rudnin. All right, we also have Rudnin saying, Lee, open borders. EU has a pact that allows its citizens to travel similar to how our states allow interstate travel. Now, imagine something of a moment. The last time there was that Syrian refugee crisis, about 2 million came to Europe and sparked xenophobia. In the next few decades, large swaths of Earth will become uninhabitable due to global warming caused by the industrialized countries that now don't want the immigrants. Imagine 100 million displaced people. I wonder what will happen then. It's going to be a bloodbath. Eric Hayes says Moderna combo COVID and flu shots offer strong immunity in older adults during a late-stage trial. There are still multiple steps required before the shot would become available. Moderna would need to apply for FDA approval, which may require input from the FDA's independent panel of experts. If authorized and approved, the shot should also need to be greenlit by the CDC before becoming law. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I hope it works. I think I'm up to date on all of my shots, but I'm not up to date on my shingles shot. I think there's another one that I need to take. I need to go and do that. I'm glad you mentioned that about the vaccines, Mr. Hayes. Let's see what else we're talking about here. Eric Hayes says Crockett is part of the legislation, which was April away from before Orange Ventura. I don't know about that. All right, folks. I don't know if you guys heard the story about Donalds. I mean, it drove me crazy. So I did a long piece on it this weekend. And that is, I don't know what get into some of these folks. I don't know what's got. Yeah, I hear you, Eric. I'm going to go get my second shot. I got the first one. But the booster, I think I have to get after 2 months. And I think it's been 2 months since I had that last one. So thanks for bringing that up. Anyway, I want you guys to listen to this interview between Joy and Reid and Who again? Donalds, Byron Donalds. Oh my God. Just listen to this piece and then we'll take it on the other side. Recently, at a town hall that was filled with a few black minstrels sent by Donald Trump or supporting Donald Trump in order to get black folks into the Trump domain, into voting for Trump. You know, they have the false belief that somehow enough black people are going to vote against their interests to elect a Donald Trump. So these minstrels are having a town hall to try to promote the Republican message. And in the process, Representative Byron Donalds, a Republican from Florida, decided that he was going to talk about the black family and how great the black family was back in the Jim Crow era. Joanne Reid did a great job in deconstructing the ineptitude of anyone who would make such a claim or who would attempt to unite Jim Crow and the black family. And she did a great job of doing that. I tell you what, let's go ahead and listen to what he had to say. The cuts that I made in the Joanne Reid interview, which had to be many, because I had to really cut it, first of all, to take out a lot of the gibberish that, right-wing MAGA politicians like to do to prevent you from getting the essence of the conversation. They fill the space up with a lot of words in such a manner that the real core, you can't get to what the real core is. You won't do that on Politics Done Right. So we deconstructed the Joanne Reid interview to make it quite a bit clearer. Check this out. We'll take it on the other side.
Some recent comments by Florida Congressman Byron Donalds have been condemned by House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, the Congressional Black Caucus, the chairman of the Democratic National Committee, Jamie Harrison, and the president of the NAACP, Derek Johnson, just to name a few. In those comments at an event designed to help Republican outreach to black voters in Philadelphia earlier this week, Congressman Donalds made what certainly seemed like positive comments about the Jim Crow era.
One of the things that's actually happening in our culture, which you're now starting to see in our politics, is the reinvigoration of black families with younger black men and black women. And that is also helping to breed the revival of a black middle class in America. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people are always a bit conservative-minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then H.E.W., Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are. What's happened in America the last 10 years, and I say it because it's my contemporaries as well as his contemporaries, you're starting to see more black people be married in homes, raising kids. It's when you home with your wife raising your kids, and then you look at the world, you're saying, "Now wait a minute, time out. This does not look right. How can I get something to my kids?" It goes back to the conversation of generational wealth.
The part of what you said that people take issue with is this line, which I'm going to read back to you again. You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together. During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative. Black people have always been conservative-minded, but black people voted conservatively.
Frankly, what's really happened is that you have, Democrats and you have the Biden campaign, and some in the media want to twist my words for political purposes. The overarching issue is talking just about black families and why you're seeing a trend of black people leaning towards Republicans. And part is that when you're raising families, raising kids, etc., you're now thinking about all of the public policy issues, all of the economic issues, all of the education issues. And that's leading people to have divergence in political thoughts.
Here's the challenge, Congressman. You started out talking about your family, talking about your mom, talking about being raised, and you on your own brought up Jim Crow. In fact, you said Jim Crow 3 times for emphasis. It wasn't the media or the Democrats or gaslighters who brought up Jim Crow. It was you. Why did you use Jim Crow specifically as your reference? You did that. No one else did that. You did it.
If you're going to use the chronological timeline of America before the Great Society and Lyndon Johnson's time period, you had, unfortunately, the Jim Crow era in America.
Jim Crow lasted roughly from 1867 after the Civil War to 1968. You said during Jim Crow, the Black family was together. What was the authority of the Black father in the Black family during Jim Crow?
Listen, under Jim Crow, obviously, Black people were under great persecution. And so having the Black man in the home was about first protecting the mom and protecting the kids. Incredibly important. It was the leadership in the home.
You talked about Black father being in the family, being able to protect the family. First, I want to read just for our audience the definition of Jim Crow. Jim Crow laws were a collection of state and local statutes that legalized racial segregation. They existed essentially from the post-Civil War era. They were meant to marginalize African Americans by denying them the right to vote, hold jobs, get an education, and other opportunities. Those who attempted to defy Jim Crow laws often faced arrest, fines, jail sentences, violence, and death. You said that what you were talking about was the presence of the Black father in the home to protect his wife and family. In 1943, in the state that you represent, in Florida, a young man named Willie James Howard, who was 15 years old, was lynched. During Christmas of 1943, Willie Howard sent cards to all of his coworkers at the Van Priest dime store in Live Oak, Florida. Unlike the other cards, Willie's card to Cynthia Goff, a white store employee, revealed a youthful crush. His greeting expressed hope that white people would someday like Black people and concluded, "I love your name, I love your voice. For SH, sweetheart, you are my choice." After reading the card, Cynthia's father, Phil Goff, brought two friends to the Howard home and demanded to see Willie. Despite his mother's pleading, the men dragged Willie away and then kidnapped Willie's father, James Howard, from work. The men drove the two Howards to the embankment of the Suwannee River, bound Willie's hands and feet, stood him at the edge of the water, and told him to either jump or be shot. Willie jumped into the cold water below and drowned while his father was forced to watch at gunpoint. Willie's dead body was pulled from the river the next day. You said that during the Jim Crow era, the importance of having a Black man in the home was to protect his family and to protect his wife. I actually spoke with somebody who lived through Jim Crow. Her name is Merle Evers Williams. And Merle quoted to me a man named Charles Silberman, who wrote in Crisis in Black and White, that in 1890, the year that the Mississippi Constitution was written, the policy of crushing out the manhood of the Negro citizens was to be carried out with success. So the man in the home during Jim Crow had no rights. If a Black man, a Black father, could not protect his wife, his son, or himself from lynching and violence, how is him being in the home mean that that is an era that was better for the Black family, or that we should think of as a good thing?
And this is the point of the gaslighting and the lying that is occurring with what I said. Don't try to impose the fact that the marriage rates were better in the higher, I want to be clear, higher in the Jim Crow era to mean that I think Jim Crow is great. That is a lie. That is gaslighting. I would never say such a thing.
You brought it up. You're the one who brought it up. The poverty rate during Jim Crow was 55.1%. More than half of families were impoverished. You also said, and I'm quoting you again, during Jim Crow, more Black people were not just conservative, always been conservative minded, but Black people voted conservatively. Black people weren't allowed to vote at all during Jim Crow.
First of all, there were areas in the United States where Black people did vote.
Under Jim Crow? During Jim Crow, could your family have existed? You are in an interracial marriage. Your wife is a white conservative activist. Could your family have existed at all during Jim Crow?
No, it could not, Joy. And we all know that. But that's why I am blessed to live in America today as opposed to America during that time.
What I'm grateful for is that we do not live in the Jim Crow era and that fathers do not face the threat of lynching.
I'm very grateful of that.
Perhaps don't bring up Jim Crow when you're trying to make that example.
Before we get started, I want to point out that I think it is completely an oxymoron to equate Republican Party that is led by Donald Trump and family values. Let's first put Donald Trump in context within the leadership of the family, of any family for that matter. One, the guy is someone who we all know has been convicted 34 times on 34 counts. So he's now a convicted felon. That's number one. But that's easy to deal with. Everybody sees that. But this is a man who had a charity and stole from the charity for personal gain, to buy stuff for himself. This is a guy who decided that all these different many of these contractors who worked for him, didn't deserve their pay, and he stiffed them. So working class folks who like to support Donald Trump, he stiffed them. This is a guy who, according to the judge, raped women. Women going to support that? Come on. This is a guy who is a misogynist, a xenophobe, a homophobe. No one has to ask. He says it constantly in his verbiage. This is a guy who had a fraudulent university, who stiffed the people who thought they were going to really learn something of consequence to move them forward in life. Again, another fraud. This is a guy who, when he worked in the government, when he was the president, had a hotel where people paid to play. So this guy is a bona fide fraud. This is a guy who has, talk about family values, several baby mamas. And at the same time that one of his wife is pregnant, he's sleeping with a porn star, one of the many porn stars and others that he hang around. Family values. We're going to talk about family values for anybody who decides that they want to support this person. It's a joke. It's a joke that is being normalized so that as you do it, you don't think it is as bad as it really is. You should ask your Christian pastor, the ones that are supporting this guy, how can they preach to their pew about morality as they support this guy, as they get their pew to support this person who is a poor excuse of a human being? And that's putting it lightly. But let's get to the point of Jim Crow that Byron Donalds had to talk about. First of all, he used Jim Crow for a reason. He used Jim Crow because he wanted to make sure that those MAGA right-wing folks who have a proclivity for prejudice and racism know that, hey, I'm on your side. I'm willing to put myself in a box for you. Jim Crow, I'm not going to say anything bad about Jim Crow. In fact, I'm going to say something good indirectly about Jim Crow. Guess what, folks? Marriage rates were higher under Jim Crow than now for black people. But guess what? Marriage rate was higher for white people under Jim Crow too. So what's your point? Why is Jim Crow your point of reference? Why is Jim Crow why didn't you use Jim Crow in a different manner? Why didn't you said, in as much as Jim Crow persecuted black folks, in as much as Jim Crow was harmful to black folks, they superseded that. They superseded that evil. He never said that. He never spoke about the evil. When he talks about the Joanne Reid did a great thing, I thought, when she brought up the story. You talk about the reason for the black man in that family. And by the way, I agree that a family unit is a good structure, but it's not the only, a family unit with a mother, a father, and children is a good structure, but it's not the only valid cut structure. Go across the world. There are different familial structures or community structures where it is more community-based than individual family unit-based. I mean, where I come from, it's both. It's both mother, father, and kids, as well as being raised by the village. You know, here we are not raised by the village. That's why you see a whole lot of the kids themselves, even in family unit, families have the same kind of problems because there's not a sense of community. But going back to Byron, he believes by using that Jim Crow in the wrong way that he garners more votes because people forget who he is, and then they can on the other side bring in, they hope, the black vote. It's not going to work. Family values, forget it. You can't have a leader like Donald Trump and speak anyone with family values. Using the Jim Crow help him with his benefit. Using the Jim Crow reference helps him with his benefactor. When he lies and say blacks voted conservatively then, what he forgot that in the South, most of the times blacks couldn't vote, or they had to make sure and vote appropriately otherwise. So again, altogether, it's amazing that that's his reference. But let's close on one important issue. Instead of looking at the science behind why black family, there are less father, mother, kids, black families, as opposed to looking at the science behind it. Just throwing Jim Crow there shows what the deficiency is with the Republican Party. It's not about science. It's not about looking for the reasons, the rationale behind why certain things happen. It's about using what happened as a hacksaw, as a hammer, as a bludgeon. We have to be better than that. But it's not that we have to be better than that. We have to do better. We cannot have a morally deprived person leading this country and having minstrels like these attempt to bring voters into a base where they don't belong. Again, it is important to note Donald Trump and the leadership of the Republican Party, both on the evangelical side and on the political side, have shown a lack of intellectual and moral consistency and honesty. They are a failed group morally. They are a failed group intellectually. And by November, I am sure most Americans would have realized that, as progressives and Democrats win a landslide in November. I am still sticking to my guns about a landslide. I just have faith in the American people that all of it's going to come together for them to see exactly what's at stake here. They didn't fail us during the McCarthy era. I don't think they're going to fail us here. I think the failure occurred in 2016. I think the polls, and I'm saying this based on not wishful thinking, based on the outcomes of other elections relative to what the polls said then. My theory is they do not know how to poll MAGA. I really don't think they know how to poll MAGA because, again, the polls were wrong in 2020 when it comes to, yes, Biden was supposed to win, but when it came to how, etc., that is where the differences came about. So, I mean, it's important, folks. And I think people are going to realize that a vote for Donald, you know, I tell you something that happened over the weekend with somebody that called me. I'm trying to remember who it was right now. They were very disappointed. And they said, you know, oh, I know who it was. This was one of my brothers from Panama. And he said the following, and you know, it touched me when he said it. He said, you and I have kids. Our kids are fairly grown now. But all these people that you see, MAGA folks, they have kids. And he said, we sit at home trying to be an example to our kids, right? So I tried to live my life in such a manner that my kid could look up to her dad and be proud of what she saw. I tried my best to lead by example. As a Afro-Latino Caribbean man in America, I have other burdens because there are consequences that this affords me. And the consequences being that in many things, I have to work harder, twice as hard, for a lesser result than the average. When my daughter was going to school here in Kingwood, when she was going to college, I told her the same thing. Be prepared to work twice as hard for half as much. But be prepared to work. People, look, make yourself the example. And then we got an Obama. And this is all the things that was inferred by my buddy. We got an Obama. One wife, 2 kids, stayed together for decades or have stayed together for decades. She went to school, got a higher education. Both of the parents did. Made sure that to keep an insular family. Made sure that as they went into the White House, they kept an insular family, a mother that came to take care of folks as well. Make sure the kids were rounded. Make sure the kids had an example to look at. Did the right thing. And we had those on the right that were into Obama's skin as if he wasn't that good American that he is. And I'm not an Obama fan on policy completely because I think Obamacare was done incorrectly. But that's okay. The thing is that he lived the life America said, this is what the kind of person we want to look up to. He got 2 terms. America did right. Now, compared to the people he ran against. Now, McCain was a good guy. McCain served the country well. But McCain had some issues. But Romney, he was a corporate raider. Romney, yes, he's a corporate raider that did so many bad things. But now comes Trump. And it's bad enough that Trump has some support of relatively wealthy people on the right. But the thing that most people should be most concerned about is that when the evangelical movement came on and supported Trump, even though, remember, in the beginning, they wanted to have nothing to do with him. He was too immoral. He was too corrupt. He slept with prostitutes. He had several baby mamas. He just was a philanderer. He did all these things that the evangelicals people speak up against, that purportedly the Bible speak up against. All these bad things this guy does. He was not the family guy that Obama was. He was not that nurturer that Obama was. Black man, Donald Trump, white privilege. He could say anything. He could do anything. Absolutely anything. He could cheat a charity, a slap on the wrist. He could stiff his employees, take them to court and let them, and it's all by attrition. He could go ahead and have a university that doesn't, all the immoral things that he did to people. All these immoral things that he did to people. And evangelical says, yeah, but God sent him. That's what God sent. Your God sent him so that your children, who you tell, don't be philanderers' children, don't be prostitutes' children, don't be whoring children, don't be sexually promiscuous children. Don't do, all these things that you tell your children. You try to live so that your children have something to live up to. And then the president of the United States, he not only does all these things or do all these things. He's not only goes with prostitutes. He doesn't only stiff people, rip people off, grab women by their. He doesn't only do these things. He's proud of it. He talks about it. And then you have to tell your child, MAGA, that's the president. That is who God sent us. That is of God. There's a piece that I wanted to clip today from a former writer in conservative papers that he said the evangelical church pretty much canceled him. I may do that piece tomorrow. But you think about this. Your children, the children that you are asking, you are telling your children, be good, be respectful, do the right thing. But we want Donald Trump as president. We want the guy who rapes women as president. We want the guy who grabs women by their crutches as president. We want the guy who stiffs you as an employee, as a contractor for him. We want the guy who rips off his own charity for personal gain. We want to have the guy who steals from university as your president. If you want to know the degeneracy of our society and why so many people throw their hands up in the air and said it doesn't pay to be good, it doesn't pay to do the right thing, because doing all the wrong things gave this privileged man the presidency of the United States, and he is running again as a potential former president who could potentially become president if I don't do my job right, and all progressives out there trying to remind people about who this person is if they don't do the job. So I hope all of you that talks about morality, that likes to put down, and many of you in this chat, that always trying to find an issue with a black person doing something or a Latino doing something or a Muslim doing something that is away from what you think is the right thing. Donald Trump fulfilled the circle because he's done it all. He's done it all. He has done it all. And there are people who think it is okay to vote for him. If that isn't the height of immorality, I don't know what is. But it speaks more about those who will vote for him than him himself, or those who make the right call. Anyway, that was my rant of the day. When my brother called me and said, how am I supposed to deal with my kids? And my kids said, it doesn't, a lot of kids now are saying, what the heck? It doesn't pay to do good. Look, there's President Trump. He did it all the wrong ways, and he's getting rewarded for doing it. He is getting rewarded for doing it. So remember that, folks. Remember that. Anyway, we have another video to show, but should I do that video? No, I'll go ahead and do the video. Democrats are squandering the election. Let's go ahead and, you know what? 8 minutes. If I do 8 minutes, that gets me at 46, and then I can do a little bit Medicare. Yeah, I'll do the video now. Let's go ahead and do the video. Americans have been conditioned to have a short attention span, to be consumed by entertainment. In other words, entertain, feed, and make things not too complicated. So we have a party that have strived on what the external powers have done to the psyche of the minds of many Americans. And that is, we have flooded the market with cheap, bad food. We've also made sure we have all well-funded reality programs and short-term programs that just have you sit back and not have to do any kind of critical thinking. And anytime we move towards critical thinking, or every time we move towards really getting the attention of Americans, something comes up, some movement comes up to kill it. We have the burn the book movement. We have the false DEI movement. We have all these other movements that come about to conflate things and, again, use that cultivated shallowness in the thinking of many that we taught how to do from schooling, elementary school, and right up. Well, right now, the president has been convicted on 34 charges. And we for this short period of time, we have the Americans' mind. Americans have been conditioned to have a short attention span, to be consumed by entertainment. In other words, entertain, feed, and make things not too complicated. So we have a party that have strived on what the external powers have done to the psyche of the minds of many Americans. And that is, we have flooded the market with cheap, bad food. We've also made sure we have all well-funded reality programs and short-term programs that just have you sit back and not have to do any kind of critical thinking. And anytime we move towards critical thinking, or every time we move towards really getting the attention of Americans, something comes up, some movement comes up to kill it. We have the burn the book movement. We have the false DEI movement. We have all these other movements that come about to conflate things and, again, use that cultivated shallowness in the thinking of many that we taught how to do from schooling, elementary schooling right up. Well, right now, the president has been convicted on 34 charges. And we for this short period of time, we have the Americans' mind. In other words, for the next few days, they will be concentrating on, hey, Trump has been convicted on all charges. And what the Republican Party, the right wing, and MAGA knows very well is if you jump ahead and you go ahead and start the narrative, whether false or not, whether true or not, what you do is you put that seed into the minds of people. Well, that's what, as soon as that verdict came out, every single Republican, major or otherwise, they were singing from the same playbook. They were singing from the same hymn or hymnal. Okay? Now, what I would expect is that the progressives and Democrats who have the wherewithal to be on network TV. I know everything isn't done on network TV anymore. We have a whole lot of avenues, including this platform here by yours truly. I intend to do my part to really set the message. But there's just so much a small independent network can do, right? The big boys, the ABC, CBS, NBCs, MSNBCs, Fox News, all these guys, they have right now, because everybody wants to hear the latest about this conviction just for a little while, because they're going to go back and watch your reality-based programs. You have them at this moment to set a tone. And for every single big politician, senator, congressperson, or someone running for these positions, whenever they come out and give that great defense on network TV, immediately the counter shouldn't just be, they're saying the judge is corrupt. They gave the wrong messages to the jury, and also that somehow they don't know exactly what the crime is that the former president committed. That's fine. That narrative can stick in a vacuum. But immediately, that opens the door for every single Democrat to go out there, and while they're answering the question, saying, first of all, the jury, it's a jury who convicted. Secondly, the judge is a well-respected judge. But let me ask you all something. For a person who has slept with a porn star, having a pregnant wife, that's who you're defending? For somebody who defrauded some of your own constituents by having them believe they were going to a real university and defrauding them of their hard-earned dollars, is that who you're defending? For someone who established a charity supposedly to do good and instead used the money of that charity in their homes to buy things for themselves, is that who you're defending? For someone who went ahead and, as said by a judge, raped a woman. Any one of these women could be your daughters, your mothers, your sisters, your aunts. Is that who you're defending? Is that who you're putting yourself on the line for? And the guy who stiffed the small contractors, like many of your constituents, as they did work for him, they took money out of the mouths of many of his constituents, even as he claimed to be a billionaire. Is that who you're defending? So as you defend this person, as you defend this person who was just convicted, not just by a liberal set of jurors, but one juror was a Truth Social reader. He could have been the person who hung the jury. Another juror got his news from Fox News. He could have been the one who hung the jury. But nobody did that because you know why? They saw the evidence outside of the color of Fox News or MSNBC, looked at it, and said guilty as charged. And should we remind you that every time Donald Trump came up in a civil trial thus far, he has lost for raping a woman. He has lost for defrauding the government on taxes. He has lost. So that is who you're defending. That is who you want to revolt for. Be my guest. America, that is who your leaders are telling you you should go to bat for. Is that what, for those of you who are religious, believe? For those of you who believe in the sanctity of life, for those of you who believe in law and order, for those of you who believe in all these different issues, is that where you are going to lay the line? I want you to think about what happens 10 years down the road when people wake up and say, oh my God, could this be the person we laid the line on? Every Democrat should have a prose that I just gave, a 30-second version, a 60-second version, a 2-minute version, and a 5-minute version. That should be in the next few days. That is what every American needs to hear. And you know what? You may not be able to say this in a 5-minute version on Fox News, but you can get the 30-minute version on Fox News. You can get the 60-minute version on Fox News. You can get the 2-minute version on MSNBC. You can get the 5-minute version on MSNBC. You can get the 2-minute version on CNN. But guess what? Crickets, we continue to take a knife to a gun battle. We still have a few more days to correct this. Let's get it done.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.
Folks, absolutely join. You know how that goes. After I have too long a video, it goes into suspended animation. Anyway, folks, let me put on the big screen now what our good and great Bridge MCP gave to us, because I think it's worth seeing. Para ver, aquí está. There you go. Bridge MCP, there it is. Compulsive liars shouldn't frighten you. Right. They're not the ones that should frighten you. They can harm no one if no one listens to them. Compulsive believers, on the other hand, they should terrify you. Believers are the liars' enablers. That is exactly where we are at today. Exactly where we are at today. And how do we mitigate that? We're not going to mitigate it with the people who have externalities that makes them want to believe that which they believe. But there are enough people that are of sane mind, enough people that are not gullible, enough people where facts matter. They know how to discern a fact from a fiction. It's perfect. And they are so right. People can lie. The problem is will you believe the lie? And too many do. Anyway, last subject of the day. The last subject of the day is a $600 billion swindle. Study makes case to abolish Medicare Advantage. People, how much is it going to take for us to vote anybody who supports Medicare Advantage out of office? It's a fraud. It is your money being taken away by a few rich plutocrats, and they give you the impression that they're doing good. And for anybody that says, oh, I love my Medicare Advantage, I'm going to say it bluntly, stop being selfish. And this is what I mean. This is what I mean. You are doing fine with Medicare Advantage now. Your plan may be doing fine. But as soon as your plan goes south, which it ultimately will, by definition, as the people who comprise your plan get sicker, that plan will eventually be priced out of the market. Think about this. If Medicare Advantage was so good, you would not have to resign every year and likely change policies when that plan is no longer cost effective for not you, not your doctor, but for the plutocrats on the top, the oligarchs, the executives. Anyway, a new academic analysis published Monday in JAMA Internal Medicine details the enormous sums that privatized Medicare Advantage plans have cost U.S. taxpayers in recent years and calls for the abolition of the program, which has been massively profitable for the insurance giants that dominate it. Citing the nonpartisan Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, the paper notes that Medicare Advantage plans have overcharged the federal government to the tune of $612 billion since 2007 and $82 billion last year alone. Medicare Advantage, now used by more than half of the eligible Medicare population, utilize a range of tactics to reap larger payments from the federal government, which provides insurers a lump sum for each Medicare Advantage payment. The size of the payment depends on the enrollee's health, which MA plans are notorious for portraying as worse than it is in order to receive heftier government payments. In other words, they cheat. Paradoxically, despite those overpayments, Medicare Advantage plans spend 9% less on medical services than fee-for-service Medicare spends for comparable enrollees, reads the new study. If Medicare Advantage plan pays for less care, where do the overpayments go? Some pay for supplementary benefits, although plans do not disclose how much they spend on them, and Medicare Advantage enrollees did not get significantly more dental care or incur lower out-of-pocket dental costs than those in the FFS standard Medicare. Instead, overhead and profit eats up the lion's share. Repeat. Overhead and profit eats it up. The study's authors estimate that Medicare Advantage plans overhead for 2007 to 2024 was $592 billion, which is equivalent to 97% of taxpayers' $612 billion overpayments to them during that period. Dr. Adams Gaffey, an assistant professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School and the lead author of the new study, said in a statement that Medicare Advantage is a bad deal for taxpayers. Money that could be used to eliminate all co-payments or shore up Medicare's trust fund is instead lining the insurer's pocket, and said Gaffney, and the private insurers keep Medicare Advantage enrollees from getting needed care by erecting bureaucratic hurdles like prior authorizations and payment denials. Gaffney and study co-authors Dr. Stephanie Woodhandler and David Himmelstein, co-founders of Physicians for a National Health Program, argue based on their examination of Medicare Advantage decades-long history that the time has come to declare Medicare Advantage a failed, I repeat, a failed experiment and abolish it. Medicare Advantage plans have in effect stolen hundreds of billions from taxpayers, said Himmelstein, a lecturer at Harvard Medical School and a research associate at the consumer advocacy group Public Citizen. And the private plan scheme also raised seniors' Part B Medicare premiums, even if seniors who don't choose to enroll in the Medicare Advantage or subsidize the private plan's profit. The study authors' observation that the elimination of Medicare Advantage would allow the federal government to use the roughly $88 billion in estimated Medicare Advantage overpayments for the coming year to instead upgrade benefits for all Medicare beneficiaries. Traditional Medicare typically does not cover dental, vision, or hearing services, which often leads the people to choose Medicare Advantage. A smarter, thriftier way to expand benefits and lower out-of-pocket costs is possible for all Medicare beneficiaries, but first, we must eliminate Medicare Advantage and double down on traditional Medicare, covering all enrollees in an expanded and improved Medicare program. The analysis concludes that would be a good deal for patients, taxpayers, and think about it. Think about your sanity. Think about not having to do all those pre-authorizations. Think about the goodness of that. But no, Wendell Potter, which we interviewed here, I interviewed Wendell Potter, who was an executive for the insurance companies who came and blew the whistle about how they stole our money. A former insurance executive who has become a trenchant critic of Medicare Advantage told Common Dreams that he agrees with the study authors that MA should be eliminated, Medicare Advantage. Not only has it never saved taxpayer a dime since it was created during the George Bush administration, but it has cost us $592 billion over the last 17 years because of the high administrative costs inherent in the program and the way insurers have rigged the system to get paid excessively every year, said Potter, president of the Center for Health and Democracy, and we've had him here several times. The program is so entrenched, and the companies have so much political influence over Democrats as well as Republicans through campaign contributions and lobbying, that eliminating the program will be a heavy lift, at least in the near term, Potter said. That means that proposals to reform MA that addresses overpayments and abuses like prior authorizations are essential and important to reform advocates to support. Let me tell you something, folks. The biggest the biggest grifters, the biggest thieves, the biggest welfare recipients in this country has nothing to do with those poor people we like to give a hard time to, those poor people we like to look down at, those people that are asking for a little bit of assistance from the government. That's not where most of our money is stolen, or tax dollars. It's the corporations that have gotten big tax cuts. At the same time, they're ripping us off by taking Medicare money for Medicare Advantage and not giving the service, having pre-authorizations and getting people killed so that they can continue to have their yachts. Folks, we cannot tolerate that. We cannot keep doing that. We cannot keep doing that. It's a shame. It's a sham. And we, the people, can actually make the difference. All right, let's see. Ken F., welcome to Politics Done Right. I didn't get a chance to read E2247's numbers today. We'll do it tomorrow. Ken F. says, Hola, Egberto. I watched Dr. Phil interview of Trump. I now have a lower opinion of both. What do you, that interview? Dr. Phil has always been a fraud in my opinion. Never had anything sensible to say. Egberto, this quote is wrong, though. Half of Democrats, as well as all Republicans, are corrupt as it comes to enter anti-corruption policies. It's not quite an equivalence. The program is so entrenched, and the companies have so much political power over Democrats as well as Republicans, though campaign contributions and lobbying that eliminate the programs will be heavy lift, at least in the near term. We can do it. We must do it. Not just we can do it. We must do it. We must do it. Anyway, we are close to the end of the program, and I want to ask you to please allow us to continue doing what we do here. It is so important. It is so important that we are able to tell the story. It's that we are able to educate the populace, that we are able to tell folks how best to vote in their own interests. We have to do that, and the only way we can do that is not by having the programs that you see on TV at MSNBC, ABC, CBS. They're not doing enough to educate, and they can't. They can't. And why can't they? Because much of the funding they receive are some of these same people that are advertising. Reid says Medicare Advantage does work for some people in certain states, but still, it's a fraud. It is a fraud. And because it works for a few, doesn't take away the fact that it really harms the many. Doesn't take away the fact that it harms us all. Doesn't take away the fact that it makes it all too expensive for us all. So folks, please support what we do here. And how can you support what we do here? You can support what we do here by becoming one. You can decide to become a subscriber of our via Patreon. In other words, if you go ahead and become a member via Patreon, you can really help us make sure that we can keep this message on. politicsandright.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon. Alternatively, we have a newsletter, Egberto Off the Record. You can become a subscriber, a paid subscriber. We have thousands of subscribers to our newsletter, but only about 102 or so subscribers. So please consider going to, paid subscribers. Please consider going to politicsandright.com/newsletter and become a paid subscriber. It's very, very inexpensive. If we can get hundreds of those, it would really offload the work that we need to do, and we would be able to do so much more. We would be able to do so much more. So please go to politicsandright.com/newsletter and select the option where, you support us. You can get our books. And if you see all the books that are scrolling on the screen right now, get one or more of our books. You could get the whole series. Tribulation of an Afro-Caribbean Latino Man, Racism Did Not Stop My Smile, Hope, or Anything Else. As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. Also, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It, as well as It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors. Again, please go ahead and get that at politicsandright.com/books. And again, support us on Patreon or subscribe to our newsletter. And how do you subscribe to our newsletter again? Go to politicsandright.com/newsletter. I got to get out of here. Let me go ahead and put the newsletter link in there one more time. politicsandright.com/newsletter. Please click on that. Subscribe to the newsletter. It is worth it. I promise you. We send it out every day, several times a day sometimes. And we always have stories that you can share, make us more educated on our voting and much more. Anyway, I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. I love all you guys. Thank you guys for all being here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics and Right. And you guys know how I end this. Baby, I am what? Out.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.